Hey, good morning, good afternoon, good evening to you guys out there listening to What's Up Enterprise with Comerit. Welcome back. Today, we're going to do a little session I thought would be very valuable for the listeners, given that Barry's here, and we're going to be doing a webinar coming up on the 23rd of June.
That's right.
So I thought, hey, Barry, I was like, it'd be awesome just to get you on and just talk a little bit about what happened at Sapphire. Not go really into the details because that's what we
Right.
hope to do on the webinar, but just really talk about what we think's going on out there, what I'm hearing from clients that are looking at it, and just have a general chat. I didn't
Okay.
want it to get real serious because it's Friday. It's today. We're actually doing this recording on a Friday.
Right.
And I thought, hey, you know what? Let's just take some time and talk about some of the things. There's actually quite a bit to talk about. There's a lot of advancements in around the artificial intelligence and large language
Right.
models. And interestingly enough, it actually does tie into the webinar that we plan to do around SAP Datasphere. From my perspective, a lot of it really still boils down to data enablement, data modeling preparation, knowing that there's an opportunity for enterprises to really do something that I think, at least from my perspective, I always thought we could do. Like in
Right.
1998, this is what I thought when they were telling me about, excuse me, everyone was telling me about, hey, the SAP is coming to America. This is this great thing. It was already here at a number of clients, but as they talked about what it meant for an enterprise to run an ERP like SAP, much of what I was shared was this concept around how it was so integrated and it helped you have insights to actions like, you know, it was next level in terms of how you would run a
Right.
corporation. And actually, um, wh- what I believed back then, I think we are getting to that now. And maybe why we didn't have it, was one, we were still working out the different types of business areas that needed to be integrated. Excuse me. But also, I think from a processing power standpoint, we weren't quite where we're at today. But it's
Right.
super exciting, and I think the announcements that we're watching all the different companies announce about their direction around these LLMs are very exciting and present lots of opportunities for organizations. But one specifically, I think, in terms of enterprise data and what SAP is doing at Datasphere is very interesting to
Right.
have discussion around. So, just what are you hearing? I know you're actually physically doing some of these projects.
Right. Yep. Let
uh,
me let me tell you what some of our customers are starting to get a little excited about, and some of the things I heard at Sapphire. And a couple of those things are one is the capability of chatting with your data within SAC, and SAP has on their roadmap later this year to enable the ability to ask questions of the data via natural language query. And it's already there to a certain extent, but there are a lot of limitations within the current tool set. But they purchased this company that has a more advanced version, close to like a large language model. I don't know the back end of it very well, but apparently the demonstration was really impressive. So everyone's excited about when that gets released in SAC, what the capabilities that provides, and maybe a more natural way to interact with the KPIs and measures, as opposed to having to remember to log into a dashboard and where is that dashboard, and it may be just a little bit more a natural way to do that kind of thing.
is this the company Cortex that we're talking about,
No,
or
no, no, no,
separate?
no, that's different. No,
Yeah, okay, that's what I
this
thought. There was something
yeah, I think it's related to
with.
just ask. I think is
That's right.
yeah,
Okay. Just
right.
ask. Okay.
And then
Yeah.
the other thing that's also coming down the road that I think is really fascinating is the concept of continuous intelligence. So this is a way for users to subscribe to particular measures, and if something falls out of range, and they can be notified via mobile phone or via something else, that, hey, your orders have dropped 10% in the last month, and they would just be given a heads up that this has actually happened. Or it could be very specific to their area of the business or their region or what have you. So those are really kind of new ways of leaning on data, or having data in some respects chase you with things that are important, rather than having a user have to chase their data. So that's kind of those are two interesting things. And I think generative AI has actually kind of changed a lot of, or maybe opened a lot of people's eyes in terms of what the possibilities are, and be able to add that kind of capability with alongside of the SAP data, which is some of the most important data that any enterprise that's running SAP has. Being able to add those features like that, I think is got everybody really excited.
So right now there's nothing native or integrated or a tool that alerts, like sends you a text message when something bad is going on. Is there
I,
something like that already?
I think some of those things are possible, but you probably have to script it. You have to script
Okay,
it
so that's
yourself.
not something that ships with the product.
No, it's not
Okay.
something you could configure, or like an end user could say, "Oh, here's a particular widget on a page, and I can go look at that and have it notify me if it's outside of my range, and maybe be able to schedule it, that kind of thing." So those are pretty interesting
Yeah,
happenings.
I think we talked a little bit about it. If you look, I got to watch a very interesting dialogue live that the folks over at Microsoft did. They had an event and they wanted to code a program live. Actually, what they did is they went and they work separately, but they decided live they were going to use Copilot, which is part of GitHub, and but I think Copilot's part of the direction people want to go. And this is this concept that everything that you're working on in front of you, you pretty much have a chat where it kind of watches what you're doing and then it can give you suggestions like, oh, I can see that you're trying to do this. Do you want to insert the code here? Or
Yeah.
but I watched them do this and it was interesting. They end up so they it was a long process, but they actually did get to a fairly okay uh variation of asteroids with some higher end images. They got it to work in the end, but the message was that the generative AI and the LLMs are now with they have abilities to look at images, but also to look at code and really start to bring these things together. And why this became, something of interest to me is I knew that Microsoft has this ability already to launch this Copilot like feature with all their other products. So you can
Right.
imagine working in PowerPoint, Excel,
Right.
Word, and
Right.
having that assistant. So is this what you see happening in SAP? Is this kind of something that would ride sidecar with you as you're looking at
Well, well, it's
dashboards?
it's possible, but tell you that just as the business is really enthusiastic about the potential of being interact with their SAP data that way, there's an aspect of governance, and people are also a little bit cautious about commingling their internal SAP data with large language models that are not well controlled or not well understood. So the need to actually have a model that is private, and not available to everyone else, and you be able to interact with integrate your SAP data with that private model is something that we were Greg and I were talking with Google about just last week. So we're going to chase that down a little bit more. Maybe
Yeah, I
that's
think
something
I mean
that's a
that's
component of the webinar that we might be able to touch upon. But
absolutely because I know that just within the last few days, that issue's coming up a lot.
right,
Because I mean, I think we may have talked about it in the past. Samsung was an organization, they were using it very early. They allowed the AI models that were out there at the time to be used
right,
across the enterprise. and their organization, they used it to create some presentations and inadvertently put out a trade secret, some IP out there, got
Right.
into the model and was released so other people had
Not
this
good.
design. It was not
Not
good. It
good.
was really bad. It was bad news. But
Yeah.
yeah, I totally see that as something to look out for. But the reality is that I think over 20 years, everyone was looking for this unified semantic layer that we can, like, hey, is there a way that we can really bring all this data together securely,
Right.
and then to have this more conversational analytics
Right.
around it. But doing that could be very expensive process. Now, but with Datasphere, I think this is very much where um, they intend to help get there faster.
Right. Yeah, very much so.
And
Like, so that I think that's brings up another point, Dave, that the other thing that I think is generating some interest is the rebranding of what was known as Data Warehouse Cloud into Datasphere, right? And it's kind of a different perspective on how you address some of these data integration and pulling data together to satisfy some of those use cases. So they're starting in these strategic announcements of partnering with Databricks and Google BigQuery and the Calibra and Data Robot and all of those and Confluent. All those things really help contribute to this concept of a data fabric, where you don't necessarily have to envision a monolithic data lake or a data warehouse where everything is cleanly modeled together, end to end. That's the ideal, but we all know that business is changing fast, and it's really not feasible to retire and bring in new data sources and can make sure that everything is conformed and aligns together. So this concept of a data fabric to focus on emerging business issues, find the data where it exists, and if it's possible with respect to data quality, security, and performance constraints, leave that in place and merge it on the fly. That's really a very powerful capability that the business could have in their back pocket. They can answer ad hoc or really just short term issues that may arise within their business without necessarily having to depend upon a data warehouse to already be designed and get ready to go there. So that's
so
that's really that's really kind of also I think why we're seeing a lot of even some of the customers that are longtime SAP customers of ours starting to inquire. So, we need to kind of find out a little bit more about this data sphere. I think it's kind of got people very much interested in it, which is I think why we thought it might be a good time to go ahead and put together a webinar that kind of explains it from
yeah,
from the Comer perspective.
absolutely.
We know our business, we know our customers' business pretty well, and we have a good perspective on the history of the SAP product line and the advantages and disadvantages based upon what a customer may currently be using versus what Datasphere may have to offer.
Well, it has been an evolution, right? We talked about it was data warehouse cloud, then data warehouse as a service kind of thing,
Right.
and there everyone had the right idea, and I think what as they start to uncover more use cases, and I know we're going to do that in the webinar. We'll
Hmm.
probably go through some use cases, some ones that are out there, but also based on our overall background, some things you can think about based on this. Um, so there is an evolution, and the whole concept is to make it more simpler to deploy this, right?
Right.
Especially because the business models keep changing.
Right.
Um, so that's what I know that some of the customers I'm already talking to, they ask specifically, will you have an opportunity to go through some of these use cases? And absolutely, that's what we intend to do. I believe the focus will number one is to give everyone a core foundational understanding of what Datasphere is all about, and then get into where we can talk about some use cases. Um, I don't know if we intend to go deep dive in terms of the technical components, like real technical, I think we still will do a deep dive, but more around the capabilities,
Right.
and the ad hoc data exploration
Right.
capabilities that are there. Um, what comes out of the visualization and ultimately the intelligent augmentation of the entire platform. I
Hmm.
think that's probably where we'll head towards.
Right.
So, but yeah, I mean, I thought, we still have a couple of weeks before we get there, and I thought,
Right.
people are already asking, yeah, the more we can hear from Comera, we know that this is your guys. The Comera's expertise has always been around data and analytics, so that's very helpful for us to be. The other thing, we were also one of the early implementation partners around DWC, so we did have a unique point of view on how these
Right.
things can be rolled out. So, and I know you're part of a really nice project that was, had those types of things that were getting worked out, and you've had a lot of success there. So hopefully we can talk a little bit about some of the success
Sure.
that was rolled out around there. Um, but yeah, I think that the there is a lot of excitement in that this new generative AI movement has really woken up a lot of people who they can do things at home. This is typical of how technology works, right? The
Yeah.
CEO comes in and says, "Hey, I can do this on my phone. How come I can't do this
Right.
at work?" Right? So it is exciting. I mean, and not to be completely off the topic, but I think there are lots of use cases for these generative AIs out there. One in particular that I thought was interesting is they're getting really good now at being able to analyze video and images.
Right.
So I think that will have some application. I did a interview with one of our consultants that is highly focused in the agricultural space, and we know that geolocation and geographic images are actually something that they use heavily there.
Right.
But I believe having um, artificial intelligence really analyze those type of things, we're going to see even more exploratory analytics going on. I know that they're doing it tremendously now for MRI data in the medical field. So
Right.
it can really look at, you know, known images where we have lots of data on and make lots of comparisons and do analytics over. I thought that was really interesting. I mean, so even though, yes, I'm in the SAP space, my original background is actually uh, human physiology, anatomy, physiology, and
Right.
biochemistry. And I like following where they're heading in terms of from a medical approach. I think there's some real
Right.
advancements in this stuff. This is totally somewhat off the topic, but interesting. I want to get your thoughts about this. I
Okay.
also saw some research that they were able to read brain waves through MRIs and actually recreate the image of what they're showing the person. So
Hmm.
you imagine the person's in an MRI machine, they show them an image of a giraffe, and from the scan, using this AI, it was able to uh, actually recreate what it thought the person's seeing. And
Mm.
I've seen lots of these experiments now. And although, sometimes the color's off, maybe the number of people, it gets the concept pretty close.
So it's a mind reading
It's a little,
use case.
yeah. So I don't know how I feel about that thing
Well, it
because
sounds well, it sounds a little creepy to me.
it's very creepy. But to some degree, these AIs that we're interacting with right now are trying to basically predict what the next word is.
Right.
So, in a sense, it's doing a little bit of mind reading already as we're running around working with Copilot. It's like it knows we're, visually we're reviewing, say, these dashboards, and it can see that we're seeing that there's
Right.
variances
Right.
in the reports. And if I'm like stuck, it can see my cursor stuck. I start to type a word. These co-pilots that we're talking about that I've already seen in existence are making suggestions. Would you like to see a graph here? Would you
Right.
like an explanation?
Well, it's funny you say that, Dave. This kind of capability is kind of already there within SAC, right?
Okay,
Right,
yes,
right,
let's talk about that. Yeah.
smart insights, right?
Yeah.
So that's like you have their data model with SAC, and as you run the story, it can actually generate some observations about and insights about your data. So,
Yeah.
like, did you know that your top five top selling products have gone down 10% since last year? So it will actually do what an analyst does by doing the old term is slice and dice the data to find out what's going on within the business. It does all that on your behalf and just calls out certain things, and you can then drill into that and say, okay, well, what's behind that? So those capabilities do exist within SAP Analytics Cloud. Right, and there's some exposure to a little bit of like live connections. So if you have
Mhm.
a connection to HANA, they're starting to release that capability for those
Interesting.
scenarios.
Okay.
But for a long time, it was just limited to data that actually is hosted within SAP Analytics Cloud. But I think that's another thing that's gonna continue to grow is the ability to depend upon those smart insights which is kind of augmented feature of SAC that while it got everybody excited when it first was released maybe a couple of years ago because of some of the physical constraints really hasn't taken off. But I think with hopefully on the roadmap they'll start to open up the different types of data sources that can benefit from that type of capability.
Well, my understanding too, this is actually years ago when S4 was launching and we were talking about embedded analytics. This is some of the stuff we were talking about just within S4.
Right.
Hey, we're taking contextualized data and creating some type of actionable, task
Right.
based upon the insight that was based on the context that you were within. So I mean, I would expect that some of this is there already within the core transactional system. I mean, that's
Right.
at least that was my understanding at the time. I'm sure that they have moved on uh, a bit more around that. Do you have any insight to that, or how embedded analytics works within the S4 side?
Not really, but one of the things that we're starting to observe is for companies that are going live on S4. It's common that most companies don't migrate all of their historical data. They may only bring in what they need to run the business.
Yeah,
So that may be open orders and maybe 18 to 24 months worth of history so they can run the business. But the downside of that is we all recognize that, well, what happened to us as a result of the pandemic isn't necessarily a good barometer for how things were running
oh,
before then,
right,
right? So
right.
you still have a data need for pre-pandemic performance because
Hmm.
they're trying to get back to you know their levels of revenue that they had before then. So then you have this need to I still have a need for SAP data that's not in S4 so I can benchmark how I was doing before that,
Interesting.
right? So
That's a very good
that's
point.
another good use case for Datasphere is go ahead and run your S4 go live light, just what you need for right now, but maintain a Datasphere instance of your historical data and bring those two things together, and then you've got a robust comparison of how you're doing now versus what you did before the pandemic.
We might wanna explore that deeper. That's actually a
Yeah,
really, really good point.
yeah,
Yeah, there's a hiccup in data, right? For
yeah.
a couple of years, or
It's pretty.
even it's a pretty
Yeah,
big
it
hiccup.
yeah, it is, and one of our current customers that they have a report specifically designed to say, "Here's what I'm doing now in this quarter. Show me my last quarter before the pandemic hit, and
Wow.
and calculate a variance between the two,
Right.
and so I can see how I need to adjust my prices to kind of try to get back to that level." So yeah,
So in these last minutes that we have on this call, um, what do you say that the just your opinion, the degree of enhancement that you see with, SAP Datasphere and this technology? I mean, you've seen a lot, like even I have
Right.
in the years that we've been in SAP. But this where we're at, what's happening right now with SAP Datasphere and these new technologies. What do you feel like? Is this is this a real moment of potential, or is it just another, well, it's HANA,
Well, no.
Yeah.
Well, what strikes what a couple things that strike me, Dave, is that really when you look at all the different types of connectors that are available to bring data into DataSphere,
Mhm.
the number is really off the charts. I mean, it's really astronomical, and so I see evidence of real openness
Wow.
for DataSphere that wasn't there for SAP BW and some of the other legacy products that are out there, right? So I think that SAP is positioning themselves well to help customers merge their SAP data with their non-SAP data wherever it may reside or wherever it may go. And for those that are might have be running a multi-cloud environment, AWS or Google and Azure and AWS, it doesn't matter to SAP, right? Yeah, it seems like they're on the path to have a strategic partnership with most of them, right? Um, so I think that's one thing that really strikes me is they're really getting prepared to do that, and it makes sense because it actually opens a door for in certain scenarios where you might have an ad hoc need to combine, let's say, some Google BigQuery data with SAP data. You may be answer that small little problem, but they may decide I want to operationalize that and keep that and elevate that as a measure to the executives. And so maybe just a small sliver of information that I have in Google BigQuery, I'll go ahead and replicate that to DataSphere, so that when I run the dashboard, the executive's not waiting, for their response time, right?
Right.
So I think that's
Right.
the flexibility that DataSphere offers to keep it virtual or just bring in a piece of that when it calls for it is really really compelling.
Wow. So it's truly exciting times. Like, I
Oh
mean,
yeah,
this I kinda get that sense actually. The people that came back that I know that were at Sapphire, um, there was a real sense of, "Hey, I think we're gonna get some real significant enhancements and optimization based upon what's coming." And,
right,
yeah, it's exciting. What's exciting is that I think we've, as a company, Comer and, you as a leader have done really well is actually track with it and grow with it and be on
right.
top of it. Um, I love that we've been able to do that, and, yeah, I'm looking forward to the webinar. So
Yeah, it should be
that's,
fun.
June 23rd,
Yeah,
and, yeah, I appreciate you doing this. I know the webinar is coming up, but I thought, people are, "Hey, can we get a little bit of tidbit? What's
right.
going on?" So this was perfect. I appreciate it, Barry.
Sure.
Hope you have a great weekend, and, we'll talk to you in a bit.
All right. Absolutely. Thanks a lot, Dave.